Hello and welcome back to the channel. I'm Loudguns, and in today's episode we're going to be continuing with the White Pipe. In the last episode I covered off my thoughts on strategies for solo players looking to refill their hangars, but now we're going to think about ways in which you can use the scale of a group to get yourselves there quicker. So to start with, I guess I better stop standing here on my Todd. That's better. So every org is going to be different, but as implied by the name, I'm assuming you are to some degree organised. So therefore, I'm not going to dive too much into the nitty-gritty of making Alpha UEC, since I assume most orgs will have at least some experienced players. There's also every possibility that you'll have at least some pledged ships between you, but these could range considerably, so telling you to do specific things with specific vehicles could take all night. So instead I've distilled my thoughts down to 5 key things to consider. And mostly when I'm talking about this, I guess I'm aiming this at org leaders and officers who are making more of the decisions. But personally, I think in a good org, everyone from the recruits to the CEO should be able to put forward ideas. Just before we get going though, if you're watching this to see if SC might be for you, if you do create an account, make sure you use a referral code since it will get you some extra starting cash. This is mine just in case you don't have one to use already, but better yet would be to use one belonging to a friend. So if you've got any mates already playing Starset, then just ask them for theirs. And if this video gets you interested in joining up with other players and experiencing what the game has to offer in terms of group play in an org, then feel free to come and say hi to us. We're Frontier Consolidated. The link to our Discord is just in the video description down below. We're a pretty chilled out group, but we like to find cool things to do in the verse and better ways to rack up fat stacks of cash. But without further ado, I guess we'll move on to the tips. So tip 1 is to know what you're working with. Before you even hit the ground, it's worth knowing what you have in terms of assets between you. So sort of the primary one here is going to be what your pledge fleet looks like, since that's what you're going to be starting with on day 1. Now, my friend Star Destroyer is currently working on a cool sort of online tool to help you keep track of your org's assets. But for now, I'd just consider setting up a simple spreadsheet that tracks sort of who owns what ships in your org, so that you can work out sort of putting together operations between you. You could also use sort of the Fleet View tool on Starship 42. This will just really help you visualize what you have and how you might put it to use. It's also got some cool features in terms of sort of counting the crew that you have on different ships. The other thing I wouldn't underestimate is the pool of startup capital that you might have if you combine your wallets. So individually, starter cash is going to be quite limited. I think we start with 15,000 AUEC as base, and then you maybe have 20,000 if you used a referral code when you created your account. Subtle hint. But as an individual player, that's not very much. It's not going to set you up with very many rental ships or sort of even armor sets. So that's why in the previous video we did like whole illegal surveillance missions to get going. But if you've got a group of say like 10 of you, pooling your cash and getting 150, 200k together is actually enough to start thinking about sort of kitting something like a mole out with Lancet lasers, which means you can be straight into the Quantanium mining. So pooling that money can really help sort of skip some of the early stages. So tip number 2 is to decide on a starting location together. I like to warn new players who come out and ops with us that Star Citizen is constantly working against you enjoying it. So getting together with people and experiencing the group play is amazing, and when it works, this game is an absolute dream, but it does often throw stuff at you that gets in the way of that dream. And you can't do anything about server instability or somebody getting randomly thrown out into space during a group QT jump, but you can limit the ways you waste your own time. So you don't want to have to start a session by jumping 30 million kilometers to meet up. Star Citizen is figuratively and literally big. So have a chat as an org and work out where you're most likely to be basing yourselves. And with the changes to medical gameplay in 3.15, we're all going to have to set a home location where we revive if we die. So if you can all agree on a good RV point, it's going to save you a lot of time just getting together in the verse. So tip number 3 is get everyone to work. Not to sound too much like a slave driver, but now you know what you have, start using it. You don't want to have anyone sort of sat twiddling their thumbs, so use multi-crew ships where you have them. With the capacitor changes that came in 3.14, turreted combat ships are now officially OP. And 3.15 has one of the multi-crew ships I'm personally looking forward to the most coming. But as well as the Redeemer, ships like the Constellations, even the venerable Cutlass Black, now greatly benefit from having additional members of crew manning turrets. And that's not to mention things like the Mole, which, while I've done plenty of work on how to solo, it's truly a mining beast when crewed up. I'd say consider prioritizing giving seats to players who have more basic starting packages. Somebody's going to be more use in a Mole side laser or a Redeemer turret than they could be flying around in an Aurora or a Mustang. But remember that each player can also take out 3 ships at once, so if you have some people with plenty of ships, get them to pull out multiple ships as loaners for other org mates, if by doing so you can put more people into better ships than they would otherwise have. So tip 4 is to divide and conquer. So look for ways that you can split up and cover more ground as a unit that help you make more progress as a group. Ultimately, I look forward to the day where we can have streamlined operations with people who are able to take on complementary game loops and string them together. But even in its current form, the game gives you opportunities to work efficiently as a team. A great example of this is some work we did to test min-maxing bounties. So keep in mind that one of the real killers of making cash in SC is the time you spend sat in QT. Flying around between different locations to take out bounties is going to slow your roll. But if you have a group of 5 of you, you can cover all of the moons around which bounty targets spawn. Aberdeen, Ariel, Eta and Magda at Hurston, and Yella at Crusader. If you've got some additional org mates, it'll pay to have some extra folks at Yella, since it gets all Crusader Security's business. Share all of the missions amongst your party, but then have each member stick to their moon and take out just the targets around it. And by removing the time you spend solo flitting between moons to take out targets, you'll be building up cash and reputation much more quickly than anyone could alone. As an added bonus, all members will be building rep with both Crusader and Hurston for those sweet payout bonuses. We even found that sometimes it can help to have one person just sat at a space station feeding the other people the missions, just so that you don't have to be going in and out of your mobbyglass while you're trying to actually take on the bounties. And while credits will be equally split between all of your party, reputation doesn't degrade at the same rate. If you need a reminder of how we worked this out, yes, we used rulers. For the kids out there, rulers are a relic from the distant past, sort of often found next to a Casio scientific calculator. And tip number 5 is to prioritize players with more limited hangers. So different orgs will have different views on how pay gets split out amongst their members. At Frontier, our approach is usually that every participant in an op gets an equal share of the profits. However, in the beginning post-wipe, consider prioritizing your players with more basic packs. If you want to get your org cooking, remember that the impact of sacking 1 to 2 million credits onto a player with a basic pack is going to be much greater than giving 100 to 200k to 10 players, some of whom might have huge fleets in their hangars already. So personally, my goal is going to be making sure everyone in my org can stand on their own 2 feet and make their own cash. Ultimately, times like the immediate aftermath of a wipe are going to be great for getting lots of people together and not on at the same time, but ultimately, as time goes on, people will be on and off at different times, mostly in smaller groups. So if you can boost your org mates up so they have the gear to be making decent money, even on their own, then you'll be better placed to set goals to work together for, like purchasing some of the larger org ships like Carracks and Hammerheads. Ultimately, your A90 jump party bus. I also strongly believe that if as an org you do this in the early days, you'll have more people to spread the load of getting new recruits up and running further down the line. One of the best things to see is somebody who you've taken on as a total noob, shown the ropes, but then watching them sort of come into their own and be the person to take the new guy out on their first mining op and get them set up in their first money-making ship. So that's my 5 tips for orgs. But to be fair, let's leave it with a bonus 6th one, and that's to remember to have loads of fun. I know I'm a process-driven guy and can come across like a bit of a star accountant or project manager, but one of the best things about sort of founding this org and building it up has been sort of making some great new friends and having a great time in Star Citizen. And one of the things to think about as like an org leader is just sort of things that you can do sort of using Star Citizen as like a sandbox. We've run some FPS events like Cyclone Racing, which was hilarious if nothing else. But also sort of getting bigger groups together to take on things like the Xeno threat. and the Idris mission, the Arlington gang in game. So it's sort of as a bigger group that you get to see these aspects of Star Citizen, and you get to sort of maybe really start thinking about like what it can be. And I'll take this opportunity to say a huge thank you to all the people in the org who helped me make all these videos. You know, it's all people flying these ships and helping me get some of the shots together. So yeah, huge thanks, because I couldn't do it without them. So if you think I've earned it, then consider hitting the subscribe button to keep up with more content from the channel. Also, I do my best to get back to every comment, so let me know what you've got planned with your orgs. And please feel free to promote your orgs in the comments as well. Like, I don't mind that sort of thing, as it helps to build the community and find homes for players who might be out there on their own. All that I'd ask is that you use your comment to actually tell people a bit about what your org does, so they have some info to go on rather than just an instruction to click here and a link to Spectrum. So with all that said, thank you very much for watching all the way to the end, and I look forward to seeing you in the next one.